Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can still see me behind here. So thank you for having us here today. You feel very welcome, and also thank you to the Melbourne people for having us on country. As Chris just introduced us, my name is Angela Johnson, and beside me is Pete Jones. Pete is our Vice President Engineering, so Pete will be answering all of the questions today. And looking great. We are part of the Bvi team. Now, a lot of people probably haven't seen this logo around. There's not many of us, and we're all a private company. So I thought we'd better spend a little bit of time introducing who we are and who is the Bvi Group. So who is the Bvi Group? We are an Australian company, something that we're very proud of. We have two owners. We are largely owned by Todd Corporation. Todd is a private, family-owned New Zealand company. They were founded in 1884, so they have been around for quite some time. During that time, they have become one of New Zealand's most successful companies. Our minority owner is Nyco. Nyco is owned or controlled by our CEO and founding director, Nicholas Curtis. So Nick Curtis was the one that inspired this project, and he is also heavily involved and still remains in minority control, so that's an important point. What is the Bvi Project? As Chris said, Bvi stands for Balla Infrastructure, so we're alongside the Balla River. We are an infrastructure project. It has been confused in the media for us to be a mining project. It's not the case. Our project is an infrastructure project that involves a foundation customer, which is a mine. The infrastructure is port and rail. And foundation customer, or a proposed foundation customer for our project, is Flinders Mines Iron Ore Project. Flinders Mines is a separate company to Bvi and to Todd Corporation, although Todd Corporation is my majority shareholder of Flinders. Where are we? As you probably expect, we're not far from the Balla River, which is along here. Balla Boat Harbour is along this side, so we're some excess of 10 k's at least, I'd say, Pete, from the boat ramp, which I know is an important point for the community.
I was going to make that point. We don't affect the Balla boat ramp.
In regards to location, we are opposite the Wind Creek Pub, but we are towards the coast and to the west of the Wind Creek Pub, which is down here. In the yellow is the outline of our portland. The blue that you can see is our magnetite mine, which we do not propose to construct at this point in time. That is our stage 2 of development. So today I'm only talking about stage 1, which is the infrastructure only. We then have a very short railway line, about 162 k's, that goes from North West Coastal Highway, or from the Port Precinct, all the way down to the east of the Tom Price railway line. So why does this project remain attractive? As Chris said, we've been working on this for some 3 years now. And during that period of time, we've gone from a very high iron ore price and lucrative markets to very low iron ore prices. We're sitting today back at about $90, but we did go down to about $40 a tonne. And we still stayed there. And our chief sponsor, being Todd Corporation, continued to spend money. So during that time, we've exhausted ourselves with lots of surveys, lots of environmental surveys, heritage surveys, investigative surveys, engineering work and design, and more importantly than all of those is we've endeavoured to consult very heavily with our community and our local stakeholders. So the reason this project is attractive is because we have strong community support, which has led us to having all our consents in place for the underlying land, for the port, the rail and the field mine. That's particularly unusual for a project at this point in development. A very significant milestone for us, which happened only on the 23rd of January this year, was the state agreement was executed by our Premier and our owners, being Todd Corporation and Nyco. We have all of our primary environmental approvals in place. So that's for the port, the rail and for the field line. They're all in run a short video. This goes for about 7 minutes. It gives you a good summary of the project.
The Bbi Project, a new and independent gateway to the iron ore-rich province of the Pilbara in Western Australia, is being developed. Reviving the historic Bbi Port, building a world-class railway and unlocking stranded assets, facilitating the low-cost, high-value export of bulk iron ore from this lucrative province, providing iron ore producers a fresh, competitive gateway to world markets. Established in the 1890s, Bbi Harbour was one of Northern Australia's main export hubs until the Witten Creek copper mine closed in the 1930s. Since then, Bbi has remained a designated port in Western Australia. Over 80 years on, the unique, protected natural harbour, with a deep seabed that won't require dredging, is to be utilised as the world's premier transshipment export facility. The impact on the environment will be low, with all state and federal government and environmental approvals already in place. The Bvi Port is relatively remote, yet well serviced with established road and power infrastructure. The topography is flat and away from towns and communities. This allows for large and efficient stockyards, with space for future expansion. Large, custom-designed transshipment vessels with a minimum capacity of 30,000 tonnes will shuttle product offshore to Bbi moorings for transfer to large ocean-going vessels. Unloading will be fast and reliable, thanks to specialised materials handling systems capable of handling multiple ship-loading booms and dynamic ocean conditions. Two shortlisted internationally renowned naval architects are designing a transshipment solution that will allow a cape-sized vessel to be loaded and turned around in less than 48 hours. The transhipper will also be able to service Varley-Max and China-Max vessels, the only port in Australia with such capacity. Bbi Port has natural protection from a majority of the offshore weather events in the region. Initially able to handle approximately 55 million tonnes of product per year, as demand grows, so can the port, with extra transshipment vessels offshore and loading facilities onshore. In port, for greater efficiency, 2 transshipment vessels will be able to be moored at the same time, with the single loader accessing both sides of the wharf. The Pilbara Standard Shiploader will be situated on a purpose-built wharf, located at the end of a 2.8 kilometre trestle jetty. Ore will be transported to the jetty via an overland conveyor. Before reaching the jetty, it will cross the 9 kilometre intertidal zone on a rock-armoured causeway that's been sized to accommodate an access roadway, outloading conveyor and supporting infrastructure. The port stockyard is set up to service transshipment operations, with a slewing and luffing stacker, as well as a bucket wheel reclaimer. Stockpiles have been designed to allow for product blending. There's a surge bin to smooth out reclaiming inefficiencies and to ensure barge loading is controlled. A sample station and real-time analyzers have been included to ensure product quality is maintained and product is on specification. The Inloading Circuit from the train unloader to the stockyard is a standard single-cell twin-car rotary unloader, typical in the Pilbara region. Designed to empty a pair of wagons in 90 seconds, an entire train in around 2.5 hours. The product can also bypass the stockyard, being transferred directly onto the reclaim conveyor and out to the shiploader via a 3-way shuttle arrangement. Located between Port Hedland and Karratha, the Bbi Port is ideally situated to unlock the Central Pilbara. Most of the road and energy infrastructure required to construct and operate the Bvi Port and rail is already in place. 2 gas-fired power stations at either end of the railway will ensure continuous supply to the port and rail stockyards. The port power station will be fuelled by the Burrup gas line, with support from grid power. The railhead stockyard power station will likely be fuelled by the Fortescue River gas pipeline. Both power stations can also be fuelled by diesel fuel, providing additional operational security. The Bvi Project is a partnership, a respectful collaboration meeting community, government, environmental and industry expectations. At its heart is the relationship forged between Bvi and the traditional owners of the land on which the port and rail infrastructure will be located. The Ngarluma Aboriginal Corporation is an equity partner in the port, and native title agreements have been signed with both the Ngarluma and Yindabandi people. We're proud that the local communities will benefit as jobs and opportunities flow during construction and operations. Access for iron ore product to the Bbi Port will be provided by a standard 40-tonne heavy gauge rail line. It'll connect the port with the railhead stockyard by running south into the heart of the Central Pilbara. The railway will travel river flats, open plains and steep escarpments. Its path has been determined following extensive consultation with the traditional owners, pastoral leaseholders, the local community, environmental and geotechnical experts. Agreements are in place with the pastoralists and mining tenement holders whose properties the rail traverses. A single road bridge will cross the railway as it crosses the Northwest Highway west of Wynnum Creek. There'll be large drainage culverts across the Sherlock and Fortescue rivers, which will allow trains to continue to cross during significant rainfall. The construction of any railway in Western Australia requires a state agreement and an Act of Parliament. The terms of the agreement have been finalised, with the Bbi Act entering the Parliament soon. Completing the railway will be a balloon loop, allowing trains to be loaded with product within 3 hours. The balloon loop is serviced by a significant stockyard capacity for product ready to export. The railhead stockyard is contained within the balloon loop, which assists with efficient loading of the train. The stockyard is initially designed to service the 55 million tonne per year capacity of the port, with significant area and capacity for expansion. 6 200 kilotonne stockpiles are serviced by a slewing and luffing stacker, with a bucket wheel reclaimer feeding the gravimetric train loader. Overland conveyors feed product into the stockyard from the surrounding mining areas. The development of the Bbi infrastructure will facilitate the opening up of the Central and Western Pilbara region, which has the ability to supply high-grade DSO iron ore to a diverse range of global customers for decades to come. The Central Pilbara region occurs within the Proterozoic Hamersley Group, approximately 2.6 billion years old. Iron ore is hosted in the Brockman and Marramamba formations. Known economic mineralisation within the province exceeded 12 billion tonnes, with potential product grades of 56 to 62% iron. The Central Pilbara region already hosts a number of world-class Rio Tinto mines and the Fortescue Metals Group's Solomon Hub system. FMG is currently producing approximately 80 million tonnes per annum of high-grade DSO iron ore from the Solomon Hub, which is located less than 70 kilometres east of Bbi infrastructure. The development of the FMG Solomon system was the first significant commercial development of a new channel iron deposit paleochannel in over 40 years. This is a deposit type only found in the Central and Western Pilbara, and the success of the Solomon Hub highlights the enormous potential of the region. The central and strategic location of the Bvi Project in the Pilbara will unlock the Central and Western Pilbara, one of the planet's greatest undeveloped regions for high-grade iron ore. The independent Bbi infrastructure will open up access and see plentiful supply of iron ore shipped from these facilities in the Pilbara to global steel mills for decades to come.
The signing of the state agreement with the Premier, Minister for State Development. In the middle is very important fellow to us, CEO of Todd Corporation, John Young, and this is Nicholas Curtis, the CEO and founding director of Bvi Group. Okay, now we're going to the important stuff for you guys, for the local businesses. Timing. Okay, the good news is we think we're not too far away. So this very soon $5.6 billion build. That does include the Port line, so the Port Rail and the Port line is $5.6 billion. So that's a lot of money that will be flowing to this region. Not the whole 5.6 of course, but a significant sum. When the project's up and running, significant royalties to the state going over the Bvi Port. And importantly, lots and lots of jobs. So the peak construction, again, for the Port Rail and the Port line, you're looking at something around 3,400 people peak construction, and then another 915 during operations. So it's a large-scale project. What we are looking to do and what we have designed for is to have a regionally based workforce. So the Port and Rail, we have no permanent operational camp. So the Port and the Rail will be regionally based jobs. There is opportunity, however, for the mine to also be regionally based. So we're calling that drive in, drive out. Again, Flinders is not owned by Bvi, a corporation, other than Todd being the key shareholder. The potential for Dido rides on a couple of things, and I think we'll talk through those during the day, but a large one which has been the flavour of the month politically has been the Karratha to Tomwise Road. So it is important for Dido potential for PIOP that stage 3 of that road is sealed. And of course there's significant local and regional opportunities that will flow on from the project. Just a few point of clarifications that we noticed in the media, so just to hopefully answer some of your questions. Yes, we are an Australian company. This is an infrastructure project, so Todd Corporation is an intergenerational family-owned company. They are looking at the infrastructure as their key strategic asset, and they see this as a tier 1 asset in the Pilbara. So going forward, obviously Todd Corporation is looking for this asset to be part of their group for as long as possible, something like 50 to 80 years. So they'll be in the community for a long time. And we put Bvi and Todd, we talked to them one and the same because Todd owns 90% of us. Stage 1 of the Bvi Project does not involve the magnetite mine, just to be clear. There's conversation that that's uneconomic at the moment, and they're right. We do have support from both major parties, and Todd is very motivated to get this project up and running. So as I said, our date for financial investment decision is less than 12 months away, as our scheduled date. We need to get finance in that time. So just to wrap up, so it is a long life asset, it is scalable. At the moment we're looking at 50 million tonne. It is scalable up to somewhere between 90 and 100 million tonne, with the limiting factor being the capacity out of the port. So it's a shallow water port that doesn't require dredging. We do have strong government and local community stakeholder support, and you can see that in the consents that we have today, and that has heavily facilitated us to progress in a short period of time. There is a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of work to do though. So we've got about 12 months to get ourselves in the best position to provide the most opportunities to the region. Vision of Todd, and you wouldn't see it, but where they are in New Zealand, they have strong community support, and that is their interest, and their desire is to have as much local participation as possible. We need to put a lot of things in place to make sure that happens. Obviously the road, and we also need to see that there is the demand from the local community for those jobs. 915 operation roles is a lot of jobs. The project is very advanced. So yes, the state agreement was signed on the 23rd of January. That is essential. It is the only form of tender for a railway line. Without the state agreement signed, there is no way that you can build a railway line. To be clear, it still does need to go through Parliament. However, with the state agreement signing, there is a schedule for when that will go into Parliament, and we're hoping that it goes in and out before the end of this year. We do have all of our consents in place, as we said, and Pete can talk more to the engineering, but we do have our engineering class 1 estimates, which is quite advanced for a bankability feasibility study level at this point of the project. Any questions?
I thought I'd started off by asking a few questions to Andy and Peter, that I'm sure people have asked if thinking around the room. There's a lot of market commentary at the moment around iron ore, and there's too much iron ore and too much capacity. The iron ore price at $90 is going to tank down to $40 again. Why does this project make any sense to put another 50 million tonnes of iron ore into the market?
acquire their iron ore off, so to put them in a better position from a competitive perspective and in regards to purchasing iron ore. But in regards to our project, so that's the sale of the iron ore that will go over our port, and hopefully that will come from many sources because we are looking for third-party access to our port. But what makes this project work is the location largely. So it is a perfectly positioned shallow water harbour. It is the historic Bvi Port. So we remain in the gazetted boundary right towards the west, but still within the existing gazetted boundary of the historic port. So shallow water harbour means that in regards to port capital costs, they are low as a comparison. In regards to the rail, it's 162 k's. A lot of the runs are somewhere up to 2 times that number in length. So obviously as a dollar per kilometre of rail, it's a lot cheaper. So capital light is what we had on the slide. It makes sense because it is commercially, it sits well on the curve.
So you mentioned as you were going through, Ange, that you've got a heap of approvals. You've got federal environmental approval, state environmental approval, native title, state agreement in January. Sounds like you've got a lot of approvals lined up. What stops this project going ahead? What are the next big hurdles for you?
So as I said, the state agreement does need to go through Parliament. That's a process that takes somewhere around 6 months. There's no concern from that perspective, it's just at the end of that we need to submit a number of proposals about the project, largely about the port and rail design, but also in regards to community. So we do need to develop, and we have commenced development of a community development plan with our local stakeholders. So that's a process that needs to happen. In regards to what are the significant milestones other than that is securing our financing partnerships.
So in the presentation you talk about jobs, and I'm sure a lot of the businesses around here are interested in that. You talk about 3,400 construction jobs. How's that going to work from a construction perspective? Where will they be housed, and how do local community get involved with the construction?
During construction, the workforce will obviously be managing camps. The majority of the camps, or majority of the jobs will be along the rail line and the mine. The jetty itself will be built from water, so they'll be out on water. In terms of reach to Karratha, you're looking at probably 400 to 450 jobs in the area which are there to build the port. The port is quite small. It's not a large port like you see on a Roy Hill, because it's a shallow water port.
And I guess the more exciting part from my perspective is the operational jobs. So there's 915 operational jobs you're talking about. It was kind of a throwaway line that you said there, but 215 of those jobs in the port and rail, you're talking about them not being FIFO at all, and then being locally based. How is that going to work with a locally based workforce out of Bbi?
Yeah, I'm sure Peter will talk to that.
Yes, we've done a significant amount of modelling to achieve that. We set out from day one for this project to be community-based, to source the labour at the port from Karratha, Wickham and other regional areas. The shifts, we're basing them on 3 10-hour shifts so that we can have those turnovers. You know, we could have dropped our OPEX by going to a 2-shift and housing the guys on site, but we made that commitment from day one. I would say that a number of those 125 port jobs are the transshipment operation. Those guys will be out on the water, but they'll be serviced from Point Sampson or Dampier. So again, there'll be regional jobs for both the crew of the transshipment and the guys who restock and maintain those transshipments.
And the other 700 jobs, they're down Karratha Tom Price Road, about 200 odd kilometres down Karratha Tom Price Road. Ange mentioned that sealing of that road is really important. We know that the first 100 odd k's of that has been sealed. Why is sealing the road important? And can Dido work? Why are you interested in Dido down there when everyone else is doing FIFO?
Well, our current design, our BFS, is actually based on FIFO. There is an airport proposed to be developed at the Bvi mine, but we've done extensive work. Again, we've looked at busing workers from Karratha down to Bvi. It takes us about 3.5 hours, but that's on the basis of being able to run the 100k down to at least the line, and then into the mine from there. 3.5 Ks is perfectly acceptable to run mine workers in on a like a FIFO type rotation. But more importantly, for maintenance, and that's the key to us, we've taken maintenance out of the mine jobs and said we'll run them on a batch type process. So you know, the general maintenance work we intend to try and pull from Karratha.
So
all top price.
So while we're talking about 915 jobs, the port and rail jobs are daily cubic jobs to Ballaballa, but the mine jobs you're talking about running similar to a FIFO roster, but rather than having those people FIFO from Perth or from Bunbury or from Geraldton, they'd effectively be living here in Karratha on their off swing and then working living in a camp on their swing at the mine site.
Yeah, like I don't think you're going to find that amount of workers in Karratha. I think we have to be real about that. But the mine workers who will be there day in, day out for the duration of their rotation, they will be FIFO to Karratha and then bus down. But what we're really looking for is those guys that can go out for 4 days to do maintenance on. You know, we have over 70 kilometres of conveyor in the infrastructure plane. We have a number of maintenance jobs both in the mine and the process facility that we have looked at heavily with our ECI contract designing the plan. We've put in a lot of predictive maintenance so that we can control when we need to do that maintenance rather than just put a man on site for when that maintenance needs to occur.
So we're obviously really interested in the jobs, but we're also looking at local businesses and how do they engage with Bbi. We've heard there's been lots of projects up here that have been criticised in the past for using not local companies. How do we work with Bbi to make sure that when your project gets off the ground, local businesses get a chance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, we are setting up a portal at the moment to put out those jobs and to start, you know, gauging the interest from the community. You know, this only works if the community embraces it, and you know, in some ways the initiative's got to come from the community. I will say that the whole DIDO process started with interest that came from the community to say, well, why can't we bust these people down? And then we started looking at it because, you know, it's too easy to make the decision to make it an airfield. One of the issues we have is the moment we create the airstrip, we lose the opportunity to remove FIFO flying in and out. So we're working very hard with all the stakeholders associated with upgrading the road to ensure that road is not only you know, on time for us, but is also to the standard that we need and the community needs. So I'd encourage people to come forward, to be honest. Not now. But
I think that's well said, Ray, and I try to get that message across to everyone. You know, we need to work together to give the best opportunities for everybody locally. And we as a company, Todd in particular, is risk averse, so we need to look at that risk profile down the track and see what the demand is for employees and also the skill sets associated. But obviously having the airport in Karratha will mitigate some of those issues that we might have. In regards to why strongly consider DIDO, and we should be very clear, so the port and rail, which take off the transshipment guys, is about 155 regional employment opportunities operationally. So that's a given. So that's already there. So that's a reasonable number straight off the bat. We're talking about the number of employees down at the Piot mine and the potential to employ a large capacity down there regionally. So why are we looking at it? Because it's the right thing to do, and as part of Todd's vision goes, I'm sure you hear this all the time, they do like to do the right thing, and we like to do the right thing. But even more than that, it is commercially attractive. So, you know, if we can get the demand for people and the skill sets that we need, it is the commercial option that should be chosen. And I think the last one is buying from your employees. You want your employees to want to work where they work. So if we can get local employees, then we will have a workforce that is there because they're going to work, but they're because they want to be there. And that's how you get that extra 10% out of your employees, and that's how you make a great company.
Another issue that comes up locally all the time is local apprentices and trainees. I know we've had some discussions about this. What's your plans in that regard?
think local job creation creates trainees and apprentices, because that's, you know, that's how companies organically grow. So again, it's the emphasis is more out in the community than it is, you know, we certainly support it. We will support local business engagement, but we're not in control of that process.
Like in my trade show there.
And what about Rosebery and Wickham? The Bbi mine site is closest to Rosebery and Wickham. What opportunities are going to be available out in the woods?
Look, when we say local, we're inferring all of those communities. So, you know, standing up to Port Hedland, obviously, as they mentioned, Tom Price, we're looking for, and obviously Rosebery, we're looking for the demand from all of the local communities. So, certainly they have a strong part. You know, Rosebery, we're looking at specific opportunities there. That is our preferred location for our regional office, for example, and then some of the facilities that will flow off having the regional office based in Rosebery. So, and as Pete said, you know, there is the 10-hour roster for the site, unless it's a continuous rotation role, but there will be a lot of jobs that are not based on site. And I'm talking up at Bbi here. So we're really looking at this and going, what jobs don't need to be based on site? Do you need a lab tech on site? No. So let's bring it back into the community, and then they can work a more flexible roster, and they can potentially be, you know, some of those roles you can be home to pick up the kids from school and that sort of thing. So we're looking at those family-friendly rosters, and I think also with your drive in, drive out, what you do is create flexibility. So in regards to rosters, you've got flexibility of roster to suit the local environment. You know, your management roles, yes, you could come home every weekend, those sort of things. So it's making it attractive from the rosters, and I think where Dido is a potential now, and it wouldn't have been potentially 5 years ago, is that the Pilbara has developed so much in the last 5 to 7 years. It's become, it wasn't already, but it certainly has increased, and it's a place where people want to be, and that makes life easier for us. And I think the availability of houses, etc. If you're doing this in a construction boom, you would really struggle. So that's where Todd's insight to continue the project development. Now we're at a point that we're going forward, and there's not a lot of construction out there, so it's a perfect time to consider this as an option.
And Point Central is also an area. You know, our transshipment alone has about 1.2 kilometres of conveyors and machinery on board them. That will need a lot of maintenance. Those maintenance guys will not be on board. They will be brought out to maintain those vessels. So Point Central is an obvious place for us.
So, City of Karratha has been working really closely with you guys, particularly in the last 6 months. What can City of Karratha, state government, local businesses do to make this project more viable as a Dido project than a FIFO project?
Well, I think Pete made a very clear point there, which we mentioned to the City Brother and PDC and others, that there is a trigger point for the mine where you will put in an aerodrome if you don't think you're going to be able to get the workers locally. So it's avoiding that, you know, working to a point together that we can put ourselves in a position that we don't fear that we're not going to find enough people and hence have to put in the aerodrome, because as soon as that happens, yes, you'll see the port rail guys, absolutely, but you're not going to see anyone down at the mine. And you would have seen that by many FIFO mines around here, I'm sure, and certainly Tom Price would say the same. So looking at Peter's presentation, things like the marketing, I think is fantastic, you know, getting people more aware of Karratha and more aware of the lifestyle and the benefits that it has. I think, you know, Chris was saying on the East Coast there's this, you know, red dog sort of mentality that it's a dust bowl and that sort of thing. So getting it out there and going, you guys want to come here, because if you can make it more attractive, we'll source employees easier. So bits and pieces like that, and the road, of course, and I'm not sure if there's other infrastructure, but working so with Pete to understand those things.
No worries. We might open it up to the floor for a couple of questions. Anyone got a question they'd like to ask of Andy or Peter? We must have asked one. Kyla at the back. Sorry. I'll just stand up. Kyla Morrison, the chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce.
It's a question for you, Chris, rather than for the Bbi Project. And it was a point made that, you know, we won't be able to find everyone locally. And you asked Angela at the end how what they need from us to make it attractive.
we're having lots of discussions with these guys. We want to use our resources wisely. We're conscious of not running around doing a whole bunch of work that's not going to influence these guys' decisions. What we're hearing loud and clear at the moment is Karratha Tom Price Road is really, really important. If that road's not built, this will be a fight for operations, what I'm hearing between the lines. So we're working really, really hard to get the next 50 odd Ks of Karratha Tom Price Road built and lobbying very hard at the state level. Myself and the Mayor will be going to Canberra in a month's time, speaking to the Canberra politicians about that as well. The other thing is around housing and land. We're doing the work to make sure that when we need the 900 jobs or houses, if it's 900, 700, we've got them available. And if that came on board today, we wouldn't have it. They're not available here today. So we need to work collaboratively on that. And the third thing we're talking about is that destination marketing. These guys are concerned that they won't be able to attract enough people who want a Dido. I don't believe that. But we've got to convince them and convince the market that Dido from Karratha is a viable alternative.
And I think the point is we want to be convinced, so that's why we're working so hard on this, and we're aware of the time frame. I think we've been between a rock and a hard place for the last year in that until we had the state agreement signed, we had no certainty from a timing perspective, and certainly with the state election imminent, if that wasn't signed in January, then we would have been delayed by at least 8 to 12 months, and we wouldn't have been able to have these discussions. So, as I said, that was a key milestone, and that's enabled us to now have the confidence going forward that if we work really hard, hopefully we'll secure our finance by Q1 of next year. So that's just made these conversations super urgent and super important. And you're right, absolutely. I see it as a partnership with the local community, as we see with all of our stakeholders. It's just understanding each other's needs and working out the best way to get there.
Yeah, been in the community for a while and involved in a lot of training in this area, training youth and that. If this goes ahead as proposed, which looks great, and I hope it does, what happens if we don't have the skill sets in the town to support this, and how much outside of this community will we be trying to bring in other people? I suppose the question is, if we don't have the skill sets, what's the plan? What's the plan for recruitment? Are you going to just try and fly them into the town and bust them down like we sort of touched on here, or are we going to try and attract these people to the town? How are you going to do that?
Yep, so absolutely. So the 155 jobs that we're not having in camp for, we better find them because we don't have any way of getting them there otherwise. We're fortunate. If there's skill sets we can't find, of course, especially with the Karratha Airport, I've got to say with flexibility, flights, etc. now, makes it a very easy place to fly in and out of. And if we can't find the skill sets, we've always got that as our second option.
Would you consider training our youth?
In operations, I think all of those conversations need to be had. It's a bit early in our development at this point. No, in operations is 2021. So we'll be working towards that. I think where we are right now, we just haven't got to that level of development as yet. During construction, it certainly won't be a training exercise, but during operations, I think we just need to think that through. But if we can't find people, of course, I mean, but we'll be hopefully luring people to live here.
Yeah,
That's the intent.
exactly.
Yeah.
And while, as I understand it, this is a really big and exciting project, the skill sets that are required are similar skill sets to what Rio Tinto, BHP, FMG and Hancock already have. This isn't specialist skill sets, as I understand it.
Well, except for the transshipment operation, and as soon as we make the selection on the transshipment operator, we have impressed upon them to get moving on the local community and to start looking at how they would train their staff to man those vessels.
Okay. A couple more questions. So there's one at the back there.
Yeah.
Sean?
What's your estimation of your construction start? You said your FID, what are you looking at build next year?
No, as Ange touched on, one of the benefits of Todd coming from the oil and gas industry is they're quite willing to design to a very high level of definition, remove a lot of uncertainty, and there was a slight error up there. I saw Ange had 2 years of construction construction. It's 3 years of construction, but those 3 years are still required a start date the day after FID. So we are doing, we're not sitting around with our feet up at the moment in the engineering side. We are doing a lot of way forward work to ensure that from day one we will start the quarry. As much as we're not going to touch the vanadium titanium magnetite at Balla, there's a lot of good material sitting on top of that, which will go towards the 9-kilometre causeway and build the road over rail bridge. The causeway itself takes about 9 million cubes of rock, including about 300,000 tonnes of rock armour. So there's a lot of work there, and that itself is about a 2-year build. So we will start from day one, and we've also made the commitment that we would start the road over rail bridge from day one, so we get that out of the way.
And just on that, you let us in on this one, Chris. This project sort of competes with Anchortel, I'm guessing, sort of being an infrastructure project. If you do a race on to see who's got a rank velocity, if one goes, the other one looks like it might not.
They are very similar sized projects in terms of the volume of dirt they're proposing to do. Of the two, Anchortel was miles ahead 18 months, 2 years ago. I suspect, and I don't suspect, I know this project is ahead of Anchortel now. In the current economy, Ange kind of pointed on it, but this is a 162 kilometre railway line, whereas Anchortel's was 331 kilometres of railway line. Just those economics, this is a cheaper project to build than Anchortel. And deep water port, where no dredging, those sort of things. So in the current economic environment, this is a relatively cheap build compared to Anchortel. So I suspect this one is, I don't suspect, I know this one is ahead of the game compared to Anchortel right now.
Just on the Anchortel question, Nate, sorry, I think it's important from the state government perspective, and we're in a different geographical region from where the Anchortel deposits are, and there's sort of the Chichesters there that block that access, so it's a good point because they actually aren't, as they're currently designed, competing against each other.
And just of interest, when these guys came and spoke to us 3 years ago, we objected to it, saying you should be going out through Anchortel. We were trying to direct them to go to Anchortel to make Anchortel work. They've jumped ahead of Anchortel now. Right, last question.
Yeah, just one question. You're going to pass the gas pipeline straight past Karratha. Do we get gas now? Or our stove? Gone everywhere else.
That's currently not on the plan, so I'd love to have it myself personally. But we should be asking the political guys that around the table. But as I understand, that's not on the radar. Okay, all right, we'll allow one more last question. Sorry.
Thanks, Chris. Hi guys, Eliza Cartwine's Bustling Bvi. Thanks so much for coming over today. It's really useful. I was here last year as well, and it's very beneficial for the town. Look, it might be too early to answer, but I'll ask anyway. It's a two-part question. You mentioned an online portal previously. Will that be run, do you know, will that be run from your website or somewhere separate to your site? And the second part of the question is, do you intend to utilise the ICN, the Industry Capability Network, for any part of your procurement process?
Yes, we're in discussions with ICN and CCIWA. Our website will have a link to the portal, and all the ICN portal is well known. It's well managed, and I've used it a number of times on other projects. In all likelihood, I'm not a betting man, but I would suspect it will be an ICN portal.
Okay, these guys are going to be hanging around after this session finishes, so if you do have any other questions, feel free to come up and catch up with Angela or Peter. I'd like to personally thank them for taking the time and effort to come up here today. They've been a refreshing company to deal with. They've been very open and honest and frank with us the whole way through the process, which has been really good to work with them. I guess our challenge is now to continue to work closely with them to make some of these ideas and some of these promises come to reality. So if anyone put their hand together for Peter Johnson.